Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining me today. Before we get started on our workbook page, I want to quickly go over the strategies that Mr. Terry talked about that we can use to compare fractions. So if I'm looking at two fractions such as 2/6 and 2/3, I notice that my numerators in these fractions are the same, right? They both have a numerator of 2. So when my fractions have the same numerator, I need to look at the denominator to compare the fractions. And remember, when the denominator is bigger, the piece gets smaller. It's thinking about that one whole candy bar. If you're sharing it with 6 friends, your piece is going to be smaller than if you were sharing that one whole candy bar with 3 friends. I can do that with my fraction strips. So here are my 2/3 and my 2/6. So again, you can see that 2/6 is less than 2/3. Okay, the second strategy that Mr. Terry talked about today was when our fractions have the same denominator. So our numerators are different, but our denominators are the same. If our denominators are the same, that means our pieces that we cut our whole into are going to be the same size. So I need to build 2/4, and then I need to build 3/4. I'm going to bring the camera down here so that you guys can see a little bit better. So again, when the denominators are the same, the pieces are the same size. So we look at the numerator. I have more fourths here. So 3/4 is a greater fraction than 2/4. Okay, and then the last strategy that we're quickly going to go over today is called missing pieces. And we use missing pieces when the numerators and the denominators are different. So 3/4 and 5/6. I'm going to use my fraction circles today to compare my numerators 3/4, my fraction 3/4. So I'm going to get my 1/4 size pieces or my 1/4 size pieces from my fraction circle bag. Scoot that over a bit, and then I'm going to get my 5/6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I can compare the missing parts. I can compare the missing pieces. The circle that's closer to one whole is a greater the fraction, the circle that's closer to one whole is the greater fraction, because this piece that's missing from the one whole is smaller than the piece that's missing from this one whole. I just want to let you guys know that my printer wasn't working this morning, so that's why I just wrote out my rules really quickly like this, but I did take a copy of those rules and put it right on the page with this flip grid. So if you want these rules to help you as you work through your workbook page, you can go ahead and click right on that document on the flip grid page, and you can refer to it as you work on your workbook pages. All right, so again today I'm going to have you only focus on the even numbers, but I'm going to bounce around and give you some odd questions too. All right, so we're not going to worry about number 1 today, but as always, if you'd like to try it, that's awesome, and I encourage you to do so. All right, so we've been working on comparing fractions using less than, greater than, or equal this whole week. So you guys are really, really good at this by now. I would like you to work on number 2 and number 4, okay? You can use any of the tools in your fraction toolkit. You need to compare 5/6 to 2/3. Then you need to write the strategy that you used. So maybe you're noticing that the numerators are different here and the denominators are also different. So it might be a good idea to use the strategy missing pieces. And that's the one that I just did with my fraction circle, where I built the circles and I looked at which part was smaller, which missing part was smaller. So you can go ahead and pause your video and work on numbers 2 and 4. And when you're ready, you can press play and we'll continue. Okay. Okay, friends, great job working on numbers 2 and 4. I'm actually going to take a look at number 5 with you. So number 5 says that Jack says that 3/8 is greater than 3/6 because the denominator 8 is greater than the denominator 6. So he's saying this fraction is greater because 8 is greater than 6. So what we need to do is we need to draw a picture to show our answer. Again, it may be really helpful to build this with your fraction strips or your fraction circles, but then you also need to draw a picture. I'm going to draw, you know what, I changed my mind. I'm going to draw 2 of my own fraction strips. And this would actually be a really good time to use your number line, because I know that it can be really tricky to draw the fraction strips. So I'm going to try my best to make my holes the same size, and they're not perfect, but they're pretty close, okay? And I'm going to break the top one up into eighths, so in order to do that I need 7 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to shade 3/8, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to label this 3/8 to remind myself of what I need to do. Then I'm going to divide this one hole into sixths, so I need 5 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I need to shade 3 parts. 1, 2, 3. And draw my number line underneath. 0 and 1. Here's 3/6 and here's 3/8. So as you can see, Jack is wrong. 3/8 is not greater than 3/6. Okay? And Jack could have known that by looking at the denominator, because the bigger the denominator, the smaller the pieces get. So your job on these lines is to tell me, why is Jack wrong? Okay, so you can tell me Jack is wrong because 3/6 is greater than 3/8, or maybe you'd like to talk about the denominators and how when the denominators get bigger, the pieces get smaller. I would pause the video to give yourself time to write 1 or 2 sentences to explain Jack's mistake. Okay. All right, friends, so I am going to ask you to work on number 6, 8, 10, and 12. Which fraction is greater than 5/6? Use your fraction tools to compare 5/6 to each of these fractions and find the fraction that is greater. For 8, 10, and 12, you're doing the same thing. You're comparing your fractions and you're writing less than, greater than, or equal, and then you're writing your strategy. Remember, your strategies are, did you look at the numerator and were they the same? Did you look at the denominator and were they the same? Because that should give you a clue about which fraction is greater. Or were the denominators and the numerators different, so you looked at the missing pieces? All right, friends, those are the only questions I'm going to ask you to do today. I'm not going to worry about 13 and 14, so you can go ahead and stop the video and finish 6, 8, 10, and 12. Thanks for working hard. Great job.